Hi, I'm Dr. Melanie Barham from the DVM Project. I'm the founder of the DVM Project, and today we're in our Career Kickstarter Challenge for veterinary students. Today we're going to be moving into some tactical and practical tips. I'm going to be sharing some top tips for your resume as you're developing resume and cover letters for jobs, either for a summer position or for a graduated position. So the first thing that I want to dispel is that the very first tip is that resumes don't have to be just black and white and really boring. I would encourage you, particularly if you know that the position that you're applying for is competitive, to include some color in your resume. And I don't mean like happy faces or emojis or anything unprofessional, but I want to challenge the idea that professional resumes are just black and white and really badly formatted. Professional resumes actually can be beautiful, and having a beautiful top bar with a color that represents who you are and a small shape that might represent something, a shape that you like, as well as keeping a consistent font and theme throughout your resume is really important. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is to choose, when you're looking at your resume, looking at what are my differentiators, as opposed to listing things that would be the same for all veterinary students. If you're applying for a job or position, what differentiates me? And if you can't think of anything, ask a friend what is different about you than maybe your classmates, or what things have you done that might be different than some of your classmates. So, everybody goes through junior surgery, so you really don't have to list after third year, completed surgeries and did spays and neuters and whatever. You don't need to list all of your courses. You don't need to list those things. Really focus on things that set you apart. So were you part of extracurriculars? Were you part of clubs? Did you do something before vet school that you want to pop in there as far as a previous career and previous skill sets that you bring? So to some extent, you want to show that you have good technical skills. So if you've gone to conferences, or if you have done extra things like a wet lab within a club or what have you, pop those in, because it really shows initiative and it shows that you have invested in learning additional things in addition to the program. But do make sure that really you're focusing on things that might set you apart and might get an employer to say, oh, well, that's interesting. I've never thought about, oh, that's interesting. That seems like a conversation starter, or I'd like to know more about this person. And the third thing is that on resumes that as a student, you can sometimes feel a bit intimidated by and feel like, oh, my resume is pretty short. I don't know if I don't know if that's okay. And there's a tendency to kind of beef it up with fluffy stuff that might not necessarily, like technical skills or skills that, or listing things that may not need to be listed. Never be afraid of having a shorter resume, because truthfully, new research suggests that in 2020, our average attention span for being able to concentrate on one thing at a time is about 7 or 8 seconds, maybe even less, because that research was done at the very beginning of 2020. So we're basically down to the attention span of goldfish, unfortunately. So we have to be able to be attention grabbing and be able to highlight really cool things. So don't be afraid to have a short and brief resume. There's an old saying that, or a quote that says, I didn't have time to write you a short letter. And that's really true. If you've ever edited an essay, you know that if you're trying to keep to a word constraint, it can be really challenging. So being as brief as possible takes a bit more time, but it's so, so worth it, especially if you're trying to hold the reader's attention and really grab them. Other things that you can add into your resume that are interesting and invite the reader to learn more about you would be to post your LinkedIn profile, where you can add in some more of your personality and some more detail and initiatives that you might have been part of or interests that you might have. So LinkedIn is a great way to kind of extend your resume and be an adjacent to your resume. Other things you can put in, I'm not opposed to putting in your hobbies or interests at the bottom, as long as they're limited to maybe 3 or 4 things. So that, again, that can be a nice conversation starter if they are thinking about inviting you in for an interview or another conversation. Particularly interesting if you have something that's a bit off the wall that you're interested in, like growing ornamental cabbages or succulents or something, or whatever that might be. But guaranteed that there's going to be somebody out there who's interested in hearing about that, or just thinks, well, isn't that, I got to know more. And those are things that can set you apart from other candidates who might be in a plain Jane resume and really, really boring. So that's the tips for today. Jump into the Facebook group and tell us what's one thing that you're going to add to your resume today based on this talk. I hope you have a great day, and I can't wait to see where your career takes you.